The evening sky had turned dark when Sarah Chen's taxi pulled up at the entrance of the Grand Plaza Hotel. The magnificent building stood tall with its gleaming lights, looking like a shining jewel in the heart of the city. Sarah, a successful businesswoman in her mid-30s, felt exhausted after her long international flight from Hong Kong to New York. The taxi driver helped her get her two small suitcases from the trunk. Sarah paid him with a generous tip, showing her kind nature even when tired. Her usual sharp business suits were packed away, and she wore comfortable black leggings, a loose gray sweater, and simple running shoes. Her long black hair was tied in a messy bun, and her face was free of makeup after the long journey. Just a few more minutes, Sarah whispered to herself, dreaming of a warm shower and soft hotel bed. The flight had been delayed by 2 hours, and all she wanted was to rest before tomorrow's important board meeting. As the CEO of Chen Technologies, she had transformed her small family business into a global company worth billions. But today, she looked like any other tired traveler. Walking through the revolving doors, Sarah took in the hotel's grand lobby. Beautiful crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, casting a warm glow over the marble floors. Well-dressed guests moved around with their designer luggage, while uniformed staff rushed about helping people. The air smelled of fresh flowers from the large arrangements that decorated the space. Sarah noticed a young couple at the check-in desk, dressed in expensive clothes and laughing as they received their room keys. Behind them, two businessmen in perfect suits waited their turn, typing busily on their phones. She joined the line, pulling her flight booking confirmation up on her phone while trying to suppress a yawn. The large clock behind the reception desk showed 11:30 p.m. Sarah thought about the meeting documents she needed to review before tomorrow's 9 a.m. meeting. "I'll order room service and go through them quickly," she planned in her mind, knowing sleep would have to wait a little longer. As she waited, Sarah remembered how her father would have been proud to see her now. He had started their technology company from a tiny garage 30 years ago, fixing computers for local businesses. Now she was here to sign a deal that would take their company to new heights. A small smile appeared on her tired face as she thought about her journey from helping in her father's garage to leading board meetings in luxury hotels. The line moved forward slowly. Sarah felt her feet aching in her shoes, reminding her of the long hours spent in the cramped airplane seat. She had chosen to fly economy class, a habit she kept from her early business days. "Success shouldn't change who you are," her father always said, words she lived by even after becoming wealthy. Through the lobby's huge windows, she could see the city lights twinkling like stars. New York always made her feel energized, but tonight, fatigue was winning. She checked her phone again. Several unread emails and messages waited for her attention. Those can wait until morning, she decided, something she rarely did. Finally, it was almost her turn at the reception desk. Sarah watched as a new receptionist took over from his colleague, straightening his name tag and adjusting his uniform tie. He looked young and eager, probably new to the job. The digital board behind him displayed the hotel's 5-star rating and its proud history of excellent service. What Sarah didn't know was that this simple check-in process was about to turn into one of the most unexpected experiences of her life. The new receptionist, Mark Thompson, was about to make a judgment that would change both their lives forever. As she stepped forward to the desk, the security cameras quietly recorded what would soon become a viral moment in social media history. The gentle background music played on, other guests continued their conversations, and the usual buzz of hotel life moved around them. No one in the grand lobby could have guessed that they were about to witness an incident that would spark a national conversation about prejudice and appearance-based discrimination. Sarah took the final step to the reception desk, pulling her small suitcases behind her. She smiled politely at the new receptionist, tired but still professional, completely unaware that her simple request for a room key would lead to a situation that would test her character, leadership, and ability to turn a negative experience into a positive change for thousands. Mark Thompson stood behind the reception desk, his collar feeling extra stiff on his third night of working at the Grand Plaza Hotel. At 24 years old, he had finally landed what he considered his dream job. His supervisor had just praised him earlier for being extra careful about hotel security, which made him feel even more important in his new role. When Sarah Chen approached his desk, Mark immediately noticed her casual attire. His eyes quickly scanned over her worn running shoes, leggings, and messy bun. In his mind, she didn't match the usual guests who stayed at the Grand Plaza, where rooms started at $500 per night. He straightened his back and put on what he thought was his most professional expression. "Good evening," Sarah said politely, suppressing another yawn. "I have a reservation under Sarah Chen." She reached for her phone to show her booking confirmation, but Mark's response caught her off guard. "Are you sure you're at the right hotel, madam?" Mark asked loudly, his voice carrying across the marble lobby. Several nearby guests turned to look. "This is the Grand Plaza Hotel, one of New York's most exclusive establishments." He emphasized the word exclusive while looking pointedly at her casual clothes. Sarah blinked in surprise. "Yes, I'm certain. Here's my booking confirmation." She turned her phone screen toward him, showing the email. Mark glanced at it briefly, but didn't bother to read it properly. "Anyone can show a screenshot," he said dismissively. "We've had incidents of people trying to sneak in lately." His voice grew louder with each word, drawing more attention from other guests. Some had even started pulling out their phones, sensing drama unfolding. Sarah remained calm, though her exhaustion was quickly being replaced by disbelief. "If you check your system, you'll find my reservation. It's under Sarah Chen, CEO of Chen Technologies. I'm here for a board meeting tomorrow morning." Mark let out a short, mocking laugh. "CEO of Chen Technologies?" He made air quotes with his fingers while saying CEO, causing several onlookers to gasp. "Ma'am, I know what CEOs look like, and they don't usually show up looking like they just came from the gym." The lobby had grown quieter now, with most people watching the scene unfold. A couple of teenage girls in the corner were already live streaming the incident on their phones. Sarah felt her cheeks growing warm, not from embarrassment but from rising anger at the unfair treatment. "I've just finished a 14-hour flight," Sarah explained, her voice steady despite her fatigue and frustration. "Please check your system for my reservation." Instead of checking, Mark reached for his phone under the desk. "I'm calling security. We can't have people trying to scam their way into rooms." He pressed a button on his desk phone, speaking into it with exaggerated authority. "Security to the front desk, please." A well-dressed couple who had checked in earlier whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. How embarrassing for her. Their words stung Sarah, who had never faced such blatant discrimination at any of her hotels, or rather, any hotel at all. Two security guards appeared within minutes, their heavy footsteps echoing across the marble floor. Mark pointed at Sarah, speaking in what he thought was a professional tone. "This woman is claiming to be a CEO and trying to check in. She doesn't have proper identification, and her appearance is suspicious." Sarah reached into her bag for her passport and business cards, but Mark held up his hand. "Please step away from the desk, ma'am. We have real guests waiting to check in." He gestured to the growing line behind her, where people watched with a mix of curiosity and discomfort. The security guards moved closer to Sarah, their presence intimidating. One of them reached for her suitcase, saying, "Ma'am, please come with us." The situation was spiraling out of control. More phones were recording now, and Sarah could hear people muttering and commenting around her. What started as a simple check-in had turned into a public spectacle, all because one receptionist decided to judge her based on her appearance. Little did Mark know that his next actions would not only change the course of his career, but would also spark a viral movement about prejudice in the hospitality industry. The security cameras continued recording silently, capturing every moment of what would soon become one of the most talked-about incidents in social media history. The tension in the Grand Plaza Hotel's lobby had reached its peak. Security guards stood on either side of Sarah Chen, while Mark Thompson continued his performance from behind the reception desk. The crowd of onlookers had grown larger, with their phones recording every moment of the unfolding drama. "Let me read out this supposed booking," Mark announced loudly, finally looking at his computer screen. His voice dripped with sarcasm as he read, "Sarah Chen, CEO of Chen Technologies, Presidential Suite, 5-night stay." He let out a dramatic laugh. "And I suppose you're also going to tell us you own the hotel." Sarah stood perfectly still, her travel-worn appearance contrasting sharply with her quiet dignity. The security guards exchanged uncertain glances, picking up on her composed demeanor that seemed at odds with Mark's accusations. A group of business executives who had been drinking at the hotel bar wandered over to watch. One of them pulled out his phone and whispered to his colleague, "This is going straight to Twitter. #HotelDrama." The hashtag would later become one of the night's trending topics. "If you just verify my identification," Sarah began, but Mark cut her off again. "Oh, we're way past that now," he declared, seemingly enjoying his moment of authority. "Did you really think you could walk in here, looking like that, and claim to be a CEO?" He gestured at her casual clothes and messy hair. "Our real guests pay thousands of dollars to stay here. They don't show up looking like they just finished a workout." The crowd gasped as Mark's words echoed through the lobby. A mother quickly covered her young daughter's ears, disappointed by the public display of rudeness. The girl, however, was already recording everything on her iPad. "I'll ask you one last time," Sarah said, her voice calm but firm. "Please check my identification and verify my reservation." She reached for her passport again, but Mark signaled to the security guards. "Please escort this woman out," he commanded. "And make sure she doesn't try to come back in. We can't have people walking in off the street, pretending to be executives." One of the security guards, an older man named James, hesitated. Something about Sarah's composure made him uncomfortable with the situation. However, following protocol, he gently touched her elbow. "Ma'am, please come with us." The crowd parted like the Red Sea as the security guards began leading Sarah toward the exit. The clicking of phones and cameras intensified. Someone in the back of the crowd shouted, "This isn't right," but nobody stepped forward to help. Sarah allowed herself to be led, her wheeled suitcase making a soft sound against the marble floor. The same couple who had checked in before her were now taking selfies with the scene in the background. "Wait till our friends see this," they giggled. Just before reaching the door, Sarah stopped and turned to face Mark. The lobby fell silent, waiting for her response to the humiliation. But instead of causing a scene, she simply said, "You might want to Google the name Sarah Chen before you finish your shift tonight." Mark rolled his eyes dramatically. "Security, please remove her now. And make sure to get a photo for our records so she can't try this again." He was already turning to the next guest in line, ready to move on from what he thought was just another attempting scammer. The automatic doors opened, letting in a blast of cold night air. As Sarah was about to step out, a voice rang out across the lobby. "Stop right there." The sharp command froze everyone in place. Running across the lobby was Linda Martinez, the hotel's senior manager, her high heels clicking rapidly against the marble floor. Her face had turned pale as she recognized the woman being escorted out. Behind her, several other staff members hurried forward, their expressions a mix of horror and disbelief. The security guards immediately released Sarah's arm. Mark, still at the reception desk, noticed the sudden change in atmosphere but couldn't understand why. He watched, confused, as Linda rushed toward them, already apologizing profusely. The crowd, sensing that the story was about to take an unexpected turn, pressed record on their phones again. They had just witnessed the humiliation of Sarah Chen, but none of them, especially not Mark, were prepared for what was about to happen next. The night's real drama was only just beginning, and social media was about to explode with what would become known as #the Grand Plaza Incident. Linda Martinez, the senior manager, reached Sarah Chen just as she stood at the hotel's entrance. The older woman was breathing heavily from her sprint across the lobby, her usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled. The crowd watched in silence as Linda bowed slightly, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Miss Chen, I cannot begin to express how deeply sorry I am," Linda said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Please, please don't leave. This is your hotel." The words "your" echoed through the suddenly silent lobby. Mark, still standing behind the reception desk, felt his stomach drop. Sarah turned around slowly, facing the crowd that had gathered to watch her humiliation. The security guards had already stepped back, their faces showing confusion and growing horror as they realized their mistake. James, the older guard, removed his cap and held it against his chest, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "Everyone, please allow me to introduce Ms. Sarah Chen," Linda announced, her voice shaking slightly. "She is not only the CEO of Chen Technologies, but also the owner of the Grand Plaza hotel chain worldwide. She owns 35 luxury hotels across 4 continents, including this flagship property." The silence in the lobby was deafening. The couple who had been taking selfies earlier quickly lowered their phones, their faces burning with shame. The business executives from the bar straightened their ties nervously, recognizing her name from recent Forbes articles. Mark's face had turned ghost white. He gripped the edge of the reception desk to steady himself as Linda continued speaking. Miss Chen regularly visits her properties unannounced to experience them as a regular guest would. It's part of her commitment to maintaining the highest standards of service. The young receptionist watched in horror as his supervisor pulled up a massive digital billboard behind the reception desk, displaying Sarah's achievements. Sarah Chen, Forbes 40 Under 40, Hotel Industry Innovation Award winner, Philanthropist of the Year. The same screen where he had mockingly read her reservation details now showcased her empire. A young girl in the crowd suddenly gasped, "Mom, she's the lady from my business textbook." Several heads turned as the child explained excitedly, "We just studied about her last week. She started with one small hotel and built it into an empire." Sarah finally spoke, her voice carrying clearly across the lobby. "Linda, please don't fire anyone over this incident." Her words caused Mark to look up hopefully, but his relief was premature. "Instead, I think we need to have a serious discussion about how we treat all our guests, regardless of their appearance." The crowd began to murmur as they realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. Phones were still recording, but now with a different purpose, capturing a moment of leadership rather than drama. Linda nodded vigorously, then turned to face the gathered crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Grand Plaza Hotel, I sincerely apologize for the unpleasant scene you've witnessed tonight. This is not what we stand for, and Miss Chen's presence here will help us ensure it never happens again." Mark finally gathered enough courage to step out from behind the desk. His legs felt like jelly as he walked toward Sarah, aware that every eye in the lobby was following his movement. He stopped a few feet away, his head bowed in shame. "Miss Chen, I don't know what to say," he stammered, his earlier confidence completely evaporated. "I made terrible assumptions and behaved inexcusably." Sarah looked at him thoughtfully, then at the phone still recording around them. She knew that by morning, this incident would be viral across social media, but instead of seeing it as a PR crisis, she saw an opportunity for something more important. "Mr. Thompson," she said, reading his name tag, "please join me in my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. We have much to discuss about the future of customer service in our hotels." Her words carried both authority and possibility, leaving everyone wondering what would happen next. As Linda began arranging for Sarah's proper check-in, the crowd slowly dispersed, but the atmosphere in the lobby had completely transformed. They had witnessed not just the revelation of Sarah Chen's identity, but also the beginning of what would become a revolutionary change in how the hospitality industry approached guest relations. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Sarah Chen's executive office at the Grand Plaza Hotel. It was 8:55 a.m., and she sat behind a large mahogany desk, reviewing the chaos that had erupted overnight on social media. Her phone hadn't stopped buzzing since 5 a.m. when the first news outlets picked up the story. Hashtag hotel discrimination and hashtag Grand Plaza incident were trending worldwide. The video clips from the previous night had gone viral, with millions of views across different platforms. Some showed Mark's rude behavior, while others captured Sarah's dignified response. News channels were running the story on repeat, turning last night's incident into a national conversation about prejudice and discrimination. Linda Martinez stood nervously by the window, watching the growing crowd of reporters gathering outside the hotel's main entrance. "Ms. Chen, there are already 17 interview requests from major networks," she reported, scrolling through her tablet. "And our customer service line is overwhelmed with calls." Sarah took a sip of her green tea, remaining calm despite the storm brewing around her. On her computer screen, she could see various headlines. "Hotel receptionist's biggest mistake, kicking out his own boss," "Billionaire CEO humiliated at her own hotel," and "Discrimination in luxury hotels, a wake-up call." At exactly 9 a.m., there was a gentle knock on the door. Mark Thompson entered, looking like he hadn't slept all night. His usual neat appearance was wrinkled, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. He had spent the night reading everything he could find about Sarah Chen, realizing with growing horror the magnitude of his mistake. "Please sit down, Mr. Thompson." Sarah gestured to the chair across from her desk. Linda moved to stand behind Sarah, while the hotel's HR director, James Wilson, entered with a thick file in his hands. Mark sat down, his hands trembling slightly. "Miss Chen, I prepared my resignation letter," he said quietly, pulling out an envelope from his jacket pocket. I understand if you want to make an example of me." Sarah didn't take the envelope. Instead, she turned her computer screen around, showing him the social media storm. "Do you see these comments, Mr. Thompson?" she asked. "Many people are calling for your immediate termination. Some are demanding we shut down the hotel for sensitivity training. Others are sharing their own stories of discrimination in luxury establishments." Mark's face grew paler with each word. The weight of his actions was crushing him. But then Sarah did something unexpected. She smiled. "However," she continued, "I see this as an opportunity, not just a crisis. Tell me, what have you learned from reading about me last night?" Mark swallowed hard. "I learned that you started as a housekeeper in your father's small motel," he began. "You worked every position, from cleaning rooms to serving breakfast, before eventually transforming it into the Grand Plaza chain. You never forgot your humble beginnings." Sarah nodded, pleased with his research. "And what else?" "You still fly economy class sometimes," Mark continued, his voice stronger now. "You make surprise visits to your hotels dressed as a regular guest to ensure everyone receives the same high-quality service. You believe luxury isn't about appearance, but about how we treat people." Linda and James exchanged surprised looks. They hadn't expected this turn in the conversation. "Correct," Sarah said. "Now, instead of accepting your resignation, I have a different proposition." She opened a folder on her desk. "We're going to turn this incident into a teaching moment. I want you to help me develop a new training program for all our hotels worldwide." Mark looked up in disbelief. "Me?" he whispered. "Yes, you," Sarah confirmed. "Who better to talk about the dangers of prejudice than someone who learned its lesson so publicly? But first, you'll work in every department of this hotel, from housekeeping to kitchen staff, just as I did. You'll learn that every guest, every employee, has their own story." The tension in the room began to lift. Linda's phone continued buzzing with media requests, but everyone in the office knew they were witnessing something more important than a scandal. They were seeing the beginning of real change. "Mr. Thompson," Sarah concluded, "are you ready to turn your biggest mistake into your greatest opportunity for growth?" Mark straightened in his chair, hope replacing shame in his eyes. The next few months would challenge everything he thought he knew about luxury, service, and human dignity. 2 weeks after the viral incident, Mark Thompson found himself in a different kind of meeting room at the Grand Plaza Hotel. Instead of the luxurious executive office, he sat in a simple staff training room. The walls were covered with photos showing the hotel's history, and at the center was a large picture of a young Sarah Chen in a housekeeper's uniform, smiling while making a bed. Today was special. Sarah had arranged for all hotel staff to attend her personal story session, something she rarely shared publicly. The room was packed with employees from every department: housekeepers, kitchen staff, maintenance workers, and front desk personnel. Mark sat in the front row, notebook ready, his appearance much humbler than 2 weeks ago. "I wasn't born into luxury," Sarah began, standing casually in front of the group in jeans and a simple blouse. "My father ran a small roadside motel with just 15 rooms." She clicked to show a photo of a modest building with a flickering neon sign. "That's where I learned the most important lessons about hospitality." The staff listened intently as Sarah shared stories from her childhood. She told them about helping her father unclog toilets at midnight, about cleaning rooms in the scorching summer heat, and about dealing with difficult guests who looked down on her family. One day, she continued, a guest arrived in a beautiful Mercedes. He was wearing an expensive suit and treated us like we were beneath him. Sarah paused, looking directly at Mark. But the next guest, who arrived in a rusty old truck and wore worn-out clothes, turned out to be a famous food critic. He gave our small motel restaurant its first major review because my father treated him with the same respect we showed everyone. Mark wrote furiously in his notebook, understanding the parallels with his own actions. Around him, other staff members nodded, some wiping tears from their eyes. Sarah moved on to share her journey through college, working multiple jobs while studying business. She showed pictures of herself in various uniforms: waitress, receptionist, cleaning staff. "Every position taught me something valuable," she explained. "The housekeeper knows more about our guests' needs than anyone else. The maintenance worker understands the building better than any manager." Then came the photos of her father's illness, when she had to take over the motel at age 23. We were nearly bankrupt, Sarah revealed. But our regular guests helped us survive. Not because of our luxury, we had none, but because of how we made them feel. They felt respected, valued, and welcomed, regardless of their appearance or wealth. Mark thought about his own behavior 2 weeks ago, his cheeks burning with shame. But Sarah wasn't done with her story. She showed the transformation of that small motel into their first real hotel. We took loans, worked 18-hour days, and slowly built our reputation. I still worked every position, learning every detail. She smiled at the maintenance staff. I can still fix a leaky faucet if needed. The room laughed, tension breaking. Then Sarah turned serious again. But success tested us in new ways. As we grew more luxurious, some staff began judging guests by their appearance. We lost sight of my father's most important lesson: every person who walks through our doors deserves respect. She walked over to Mark, placing a hand on his shoulder. Mr. Thompson's mistake 2 weeks ago was painful, but it reminded us why we're here. Luxury isn't about marble floors or crystal chandeliers. It's about making everyone feel valued. Mark stood up, his voice shaking but clear. I've spent the past 2 weeks working in housekeeping, he shared. Yesterday, I cleaned 15 rooms. I learned more about guest service from Maria, our head housekeeper, than I ever did in hotel management school. Sarah nodded approvingly. That's exactly why I still do surprise visits dressed casually. It's not to trick anyone, it's to ensure we never forget our roots and our purpose. As the session ended, Sarah revealed her new initiative. Every new employee, regardless of position, would work in each department for at least a week. Understanding builds respect, she explained. And respect is the true meaning of luxury. The staff gave her a standing ovation. Mark remained seated, looking at his notes. He had written just one sentence that summed up everything. True luxury is treating everyone like they own the hotel, even if they look like they can't afford a room. 6 months after the infamous incident, the Grand Plaza Hotel had transformed in ways nobody could have predicted. Mark Thompson stood in front of a large training room, but this time he wasn't a participant. He was the lead trainer for the hotel's new Respect First program. Behind him, a screen displayed the viral video of his mistake, which had now become a powerful teaching tool. This was me, Mark said to the group of new employees from various Grand Plaza hotels across the country. I was that person who thought luxury meant treating people differently based on how they looked. He paused, letting his words sink in. I was completely wrong. The room was filled with staff members from different hotels, all part of Sarah Chen's new initiative. Every employee, from bellhops to managers, now had to complete this special training program. The most surprising part? Mark's sessions have become the most requested and highly rated. Let me show you what happened last week, Mark continued, switching to a new video. The footage showed a young woman in sweatpants and a baseball cap entering the hotel. The new receptionist, trained under the new program, greeted her warmly and provided excellent service. The woman turned out to be a famous movie star who later tweeted about her wonderful experience. But that's not the point, Mark emphasized. The point is that it shouldn't matter who they are. Every guest deserves the same respect. In the back of the room, Sarah Chen sat quietly, watching her former critic become her strongest advocate. She smiled, remembering how Mark had spent his first month working in every department, cleaning rooms, carrying luggage, washing dishes, and fixing air conditioners. The training session continued with role-playing exercises. Mark had developed these scenarios based on real situations. Employees took turns playing different types of guests while others practiced providing service without prejudice. Remember, Mark said, walking between the groups, Ms. Chen started as a housekeeper. Our head chef used to be a dishwasher. I was a judgmental receptionist who learned the hard way. Your position doesn't define your worth, and neither does a guest's appearance. During the lunch break, Sarah received an email from Forbes magazine. They wanted to feature the Grand Plaza's transformation in their next issue. The viral incident, instead of damaging the hotel's reputation, had sparked a revolution in the hospitality industry. Other hotel chains had started copying their training program. Hashtag Respect First had replaced hashtag Hotel Discrimination in social media conversations. The Grand Plaza's bookings had actually increased, with guests specifically mentioning their inclusive approach as a reason for choosing their hotels. Mark's afternoon session focused on practical changes. The hotel had removed dress codes from their lobby areas. They'd installed comfortable seating where anyone could rest, even if they weren't guests. The staff now wore badges that showed all the departments they trained in, promoting understanding and respect among colleagues. We even changed our hiring process, Mark explained. We no longer require formal hospitality degrees for many positions. Instead, we look for people who demonstrate empathy and respect. We can teach hotel skills, but we can't teach kindness. Sarah finally stood up to address the group. The room fell silent as she walked to the front. 6 months ago, Mr. Thompson made a mistake that could have ended his career, she said. Instead, he helped us create something remarkable. She revealed the latest numbers. Customer satisfaction scores had risen by 40%. Employee retention had improved by 60%. The hotel's social media sentiment had completely transformed from negative to overwhelmingly positive. But the most important change isn't in these numbers, Sarah continued. It's in the stories. The homeless person who was treated with dignity when he just needed to use our bathroom. The celebrity who felt comfortable walking in wearing pajamas. The elderly couple who felt valued despite not being able to afford our best rooms. Mark added his own observation. We're not just a luxury hotel anymore. We're a place where respect comes first, regardless of who you are or what you're wearing. As the training session ended, the participants received their first assignments. Each would spend the next week working in a different department than their hired position. Some managers looked uncomfortable at the idea of cleaning rooms or washing dishes. Mark smiled, remembering his own journey. Trust me, he said, those rooms and dishes will teach you more about hospitality than any luxury training ever could. Outside, the hotel's new motto shone in elegant letters. Grand Plaza Hotel, where everyone is a VIP. The words had been Mark's idea, inspired by his own transformation from judging people to understanding that true luxury begins with respect. 1 year after the viral incident, the Grand Plaza Hotel's main ballroom was packed with journalists, hotel industry leaders, and employees from all levels. The occasion? The first annual Hospitality Without Borders conference, an event that grew from one receptionist's mistake into a worldwide movement for change in the hotel industry. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, wearing a simple black dress rather than an expensive designer outfit. Behind her, a giant screen showed the transformation their hotels had undergone over the past year. But the most powerful image was the split-screen video. On one side, Mark Thompson's infamous interaction from a year ago. On the other, the same lobby today, where guests of all appearances were being treated with equal respect and warmth. A year ago, we went viral for the wrong reasons, Sarah began, her voice carrying across the silent room. Today, we're viral for all the right ones. She clicked to show recent social media posts, guests sharing stories of exceptional service, celebrities praising the hotel's inclusive atmosphere, and countless testimonials from people who had previously felt unwelcome in luxury hotels. In the front row, Mark Thompson sat wearing his new uniform, a badge that read Chief of Guest Experience and Inclusion Training. His journey had become a case study in business schools across the country. Next to him sat Maria, the head housekeeper who had taught him humility, now promoted to Director of Staff Development. Our revenue has increased by 50%, Sarah continued. But that's not what makes me proud. What makes me proud is that we've changed the definition of luxury hospitality. She gestured to the back of the room, where her father's old motel sign hung as a reminder of their humble beginnings. The presentation showed photographs from the past year. A famous rock star checking in wearing pajamas, an elderly couple being treated like royalty in the lobby, a group of backpackers enjoying the same service as business executives. Each image represented a story of inclusion and respect. Mark took the stage next, his confidence now coming from experience rather than arrogance. A year ago, I judged a guest by her appearance, he admitted. Today, I train people to see beyond appearances. We've hosted CEOs who arrived on bicycles, celebrities in sweatpants, and everyday heroes who saved up for years to stay with us. Each one received the same VIP treatment. The hotel's new training program had been adopted by over 200 hotels worldwide. The Respect First manual, co-written by Mark and Sarah, had become required reading in hospitality schools. But the most significant change was in the small, daily interactions. Sarah shared the story of a recent incident. A young student had walked in, drenched from rain, just needing directions. The same lobby where she had once been humiliated became a place of refuge. The staff offered her a towel, a hot chocolate, and proper directions. No questions asked about whether she was a guest. "This is the new face of luxury," Sarah declared. "Not marble floors or crystal chandeliers, but the luxury of being treated with dignity, regardless of your appearance or background." The conference concluded with a surprising announcement. The Grand Plaza was launching a scholarship program for underprivileged students interested in hospitality careers. The first recipient? The daughter of a housekeeper who had worked at Sarah's father's old motel. As the event ended, journalists crowded around Mark, asking about his transformation. "What's the biggest lesson you learned?" one reporter asked. Mark looked at Sarah, then at Maria, before answering. "I learned that true luxury isn't about keeping people out, it's about welcoming them in. Every person who walks through those doors has a story, and it's not our job to judge that story based on their appearance." Outside the hotel, the old signs of exclusivity had been replaced with a new message. "Welcome all, respect always." The lobby that had once been a scene of discrimination had become a symbol of change in the hospitality industry. Sarah's final words at the conference summed up their journey. "A year ago, a mistake taught us our most valuable lesson. Today, that lesson has become our greatest strength. In our hotels, everyone is a VIP, not because of what they wear, what they own, or who they are, but simply because they are human beings deserving of respect." As the conference attendees departed, they passed by a new addition to the hotel's entrance, a small plaque with a simple message: "Judge not by appearance, for every guest carries a story worth hearing." Below it, in smaller letters: "Inspired by a moment that changed us all, Grand Plaza Hotel, 2024.